Welcome back in. It's the Zach Gelb Show on a Sunday morning on CBS Sports Radio. We continue our NFL draft preview conversation as we look at what the Denver Broncos will do at the number 5 pick in this upcoming draft on Thursday in Dallas, right by Jerry's World. So let's head out to Denver. We'll talk to a Broncos insider for ABC7 in Denver, get a little update on their past offseason, and that is Troy Renck, who covers the team. And you can follow him on Twitter at Troy Renck. Troy, it's Zach Gelb here on CBS Sports Radio. Appreciate a few minutes, and how are you?
I'm doing great. Appreciate being here.
Well, thank you for hopping on board. Before we get to the draft, let's just take a look at this offseason for the Denver Broncos. It all got started off with them retaining Vance Joseph. Last year was his first year as the Broncos head coach. They had to fire some assistants. How much in danger was he of losing his job, and how did you evaluate year one under Vance Joseph?
Well, it was a disaster. I mean, they were expecting to go to the playoffs, and instead they had the longest losing streak in 50 years, an 8-game losing streak. They won one road game. They went 2-10 after the bye week and finished the season with 10 losses in 12 games. They weren't competitive in most of those games, so maybe, the change in the coaching staff can help Vance Joseph. He has said he has to coach his coaches better. And they brought in some new faces, and they had a good season. They had a pretty good offseason in terms of free agency, kind of quietly had a nice offseason. But he's coaching for his job. He was very close to losing his job. I think if the right guy had been available, had been fired somewhere else, he might have lost his job. And he has to get off to a good start. 3 of their first 4 games are at home. And if they don't get off to a good start, he won't survive.
Quarterback has been such an issue for the Broncos since they said goodbye to Peyton Manning when he retired. They bring Case Keenum in the offseason. Now they have the draft coming up, and we'll see in just a bit what they're going to do with the 5th overall pick. But they bring in Case Keenum, who did take the Vikings to the NFC Championship game last year where they did lose to the Eagles. Break down this Keenum signing and what the Broncos are hoping to get out of Case Keenum.
Well, they like Keenum. They believe he's going to give them a little stability to the quarterback position. They had 22 picks last year. Only the Browns had worse quarterback play. And in Keenum, frankly, they got him on a much more manageable contract than they expected. He's a guy who's better than a bridge quarterback, but he's got a bridge quarterback's contract, $25 million guaranteed over 2 years. We all thought, he's going to get Brock Osweiler money, $34 to $35 million guaranteed. So you're pretty much saying he's got to be the guy for 2 years. But they get him for 25. Blake Bortles essentially undermined Keenum's leverage the way the market fell. But they like Keenum. They like the guy. They like the fact that he's been through so much adversity. They think his past failure as kind of a journeyman will make him a successful guy here. He's got elephant skin. He's been through battles. He's won jobs, lost jobs. And they don't think the moment will be too big. Because being the quarterback of the Denver Broncos is basically the most high-profile position in the state of Colorado. And they think he's ready for it. So we'll see. I mean, again, they've minimized the risk to where I like the move. I mean, a 2-year deal at 25, they'll have an escape hatch if they need it. But I think Keenum will certainly help them get back on the right track. How much, I don't know. But he certainly should be an improvement over last year.
I don't think Case Keenum can win you a Super Bowl, but when you're out of the postseason, you're just trying to get to the postseason the next year. Maybe he could get you to the playoffs. You saw what he was able to do last year to the Vikings, but then saw his shortcomings up against the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. I know you say you don't know how big the jump will be, but if you had to try to take your best guess, just looking at the schedule the other day, and I know it's still very early, is there a win range that you kind of target this year for the Broncos now with Keenum at quarterback?
Well, again, understand this about the Broncos. They haven't had back-to-back losing seasons since 1972. So I see them as a team that could go 8-8. So I think Keenum makes them better, makes them more competitive, but not enough to get them over the hump necessarily in 1 year. But it gives them hope that, okay, now at 8-8, you're a couple players away to get back to 10-6 and contending. But the AFC West has come back to the pack a little bit. Certainly the Chiefs have, and the Chiefs have dominated the division the last 2 years and have dominated the Broncos, frankly. But you mentioned, without Manning, Broncos have not won an AFC West road game since he retired. That crushes them. And so that means they have to be really good at home, 6-2, 7-1, and that schedule, I don't know that it allows that, but I do think 500 is realistic for this team, and a team that then should be in the hunt for a playoff berth, early in December, if not mid-December.
Talking to Troy Renck right now on the Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. He, of course, is a Broncos insider for ABC7 in Denver. Since you mentioned the division, And this could be a fun division. You got Gruden coming back. You take a look at the Chiefs. Now they're going to start Mahomes. And also, we'll see if Phillip Rivers, who I believe is a Hall of Fame quarterback, has one more run left in him. This could be shaping up to be a fun division this upcoming year.
Yeah, the Chargers are the best team I saw last year. They got hot too late. I mean, when they start 0-4, but in terms of the roster with Bosa and Ingram, they give the Broncos trouble. The Broncos pass blocking has been atrocious the last couple of years. So part of my prism and how I view the Chargers is they are just a really difficult matchup for the Broncos. But I'd say the Chargers are now the slight favorite. The Chiefs have come back to the pack. Now, I'm a guy who likes Patrick Mahomes. He's LaTroy Hawkins' godson. I've known LaTroy Hawkins for years, a pitcher for the Rockies, and I've known about that kid since he was about 12 years old. And I'm rooting for Mahomes, but I can't believe in his first year as a starter he's going to be better than Alex Smith has been the last 2 years. Because the one thing Alex Smith didn't do, he never turned the ball over, ever. I mean, he's just reliable. So I think the Chiefs are now vulnerable. I think it might be a 10-6 division winner, which is why I think that Broncos would be in the hunt all the way to the end.
Let me just ask you this about Andy Reid, since you have a better pulse of that division. I know you don't cover the Chiefs, but you at least get to see them 2 times a year. They had a brutal postseason loss a year ago. The coaching was just terrible in that game. When it comes to Andy Reid, if the Chiefs do fall back, could he be in jeopardy of maybe losing his job?
I don't think so. I think he's running the show there, honestly. He has made the bold move of trying to win while going young. Kind of sprinkling the roster with youth. I mean, every move they made this offseason told me the opposite, that he's in charge. If he's coaching for his job, you don't trade Alex Smith. I mean, you keep him one more year because you know you can win with Alex Smith. Mahomes is the guy, I think they realize, like, if we're going to get past that next level and get to the Super Bowl, you need a more dynamic quarterback, and you might have to live with more turnovers, but you need a guy who can make plays off script. And Alex Smith isn't the reason they've had the horrible playoff losses, but he's part of it. He's part of it. And so I think certainly Reid is safe. The team I think is going to backslide, and I like John Gruden personally, but he's putting together like a 1998 Pro Bowl team going older. I'm not seeing the vision right now for the Raiders. I mean, I see a team that really, backslid last year. They have defensive issues across the board. They're going to be moving. How is Oakland going to react to that team if they're bad, knowing they're leaving? I don't know. I think they're a team that could go to 5-11, and where the Broncos could then be the 8-8 team.
We know the Broncos have a very strong defense. They're not helped last year though with the offensive problems at the quarterback position. Still Von Miller there. No more Talib as they trade him to the Rams. They do bring in Stuart Cravens in a trade with the Redskins. Just give me a little outlook as you get ready for the OTAs and training camp, and also the preseason and regular season with this Broncos defense once again.
Well, they should be better. I mean, people don't realize they only had 33 sacks last year. They're wasting Von Miller in his prime, but their best defense could be a better offense. Denver was trailing during that 8-game losing streak I talked about earlier. They trailed 90% of the time of those games. So teams go into a 4-minute offense. They neutralize their best players, which are their cornerbacks and their pass rusher. They don't expose their quarterback to the rush. So they need an offense that can pound the rock on the ground, get ahead 7-0, 10-0, and force teams to pass. Because Von Miller had a great year last year. You wouldn't know it with his 10 sacks, but he did. They need Shane Ray back and healthy. He's put 20 pounds back on, looking for a bounce-back season. Stuart Cravens, you mentioned, maybe he's finally the answer to helping cover tight ends. They still have Chris Harris, one of the best cornerbacks in football. Bradley Roby's going to get his chance to start. Justin Simmons is an emerging star at safety. They added Clinton McDonald. Derek Wolf's healthy. It has a chance to be a great defense, but it's not going to be if the offense doesn't stop turning the ball over, because change of possession points killed the defense last year. They finally broke under the strain of it. And if the defense doesn't get to stay off the field and play, at some point, start playing either neutral or playing with a lead. Because when they play with a lead, they're one of the better defenses in football. When they don't, Von Miller becomes, he gets chipped consistently, and he can't get sacks because they don't expose their quarterback to multiple, basically third down and longs, those kind of things. So we'll see. They do have talent on defense, and if the pieces fall right, Keenum takes care of the ball, that's where the optimism lies.
Wrapping up with Troy Renck right now on the Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio, Broncos Insider for ABC 7 in Denver. Draft coming up next week, starts on Thursday. we all know the quarterbacks are looking at in this draft, and we're going to see how many go in the top 5. Just from a Broncos perspective, not looking at the other teams, what are the quarterbacks, who are the quarterbacks that they're in love with and they absolutely would not pass up if available at 5?
Well, they've had the most interest publicly in Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen. They said, John Elway said he likes 4 of them, not 5. He has first-round grades on 4 of them. So I believe Sam Darnold goes 1. So now you're down to Rosen, Mayfield, and Allen. They know the most about Mayfield and Allen, having coached them at the Senior Bowl. So if one of those guys is on the board between Mayfield and Allen, I think that's where they make that choice at quarterback. If none of those quarterbacks are on the board, and they're going to get it down to 2 guys they like, with John Elway kind of breaking the tie. But if they don't have a quarterback on the board they like at 5, it would not shock me if they trade with the Bills or somebody and move back to get multiple picks in the first round.
We all know John Elway, one of the great quarterbacks the game has ever seen, but he struggled trying to find a replacement for Peyton Manning, and that's putting it lightly. Is the Bronco fan at all hesitant in trusting John Elway here to get that next quarterback of the future? They still have that loyalty in him.
Well, no, I mean, Elway's 7 years, 5 playoff berths, Super Bowls, 1 Super Bowl title. I mean, he's had a great run as a GM. The last 2 years have been difficult, and last year's draft was kind of a ghost class. That's what's hurt them. Is like, okay, they're going to rebuild through the draft, and they look at last year's draft, and only one guy played, Garrett Bowles. So, fans are frustrated because they're used to winning. It's a legacy of winning here, and the pressure is always on here to win. But they're going to figure it out at quarterback at some point. And the one good news is they have Case Keenum. They have something in their back pocket instead of, Trevor Siemian and Lynch. They've got something in their back pocket now to where you don't feel like if they miss on quarterback, they're naked. They've got something. So fans are encouraged by Keenum. But if Baker Mayfield in particular is on the board, fans would want that. And even Josh Allen, because in so many ways he's a local kid.
If it comes down to Allen or Rosen, because if I'm going to tell you, let's say Darnold goes 1, Barkley goes 2, Mayfield goes 3, and let's say the Browns take Chubb at 4, and then they're sitting there at 5, and you're down between Allen or Rosen, where is the preference there?
I think the slight lean goes to Allen, just because, again, he checks every box on what you want in a quarterback. He would need a year, too, and you could argue that they have they could accommodate that with Keenum. Rosen is harder to get a read on, but John Elway admitted you can't win a championship in this league without a guy who can throw from the pocket. And for me, no one is better in this class throwing from the pocket than Josh Rosen. But I still think if it comes down to the 2 of them, the slight lean would go to Allen because of the physical tools.
Well, Troy, great stuff. We appreciate you coming on. Make sure you actually say hello to the kicker for the Broncos, Brandon McManus, a former college classmate of mine at Temple University. But we do appreciate you hopping on board and give us a little insight on the Broncos, their offseason, and also the draft. Thanks, Troy.
You got it. Love the show. Take care.